So it is here, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I've always wanted to do this. I'm finally getting it done. Finally have the opportunity to do something that I think is cool. Um, which is throwback. Throwback review. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the very first WTR Within the Ropes throwback review. And I couldn't have think of a better first throwback review to do, and I couldn't think of a better throwback than the July 6th edition, July 6th, 1998 to be specific, edition of Monday Nitro from Atlanta, Georgia, in the Georgia Dome, where Goldberg, historically, I believe it is 23 years today since Goldberg defeated Hollywood Hogan to become the WCW champion on one of the very weird and I guess you could say, um, I guess you could say the biggest Monday Nitro that they've ever had. The largest WCW crowd, I believe it was 41,412. Um, a lot of people would argue and say that they should have saved this match for pay per view, which I think they should have done also. Some people say it was just right. It was a gift and a curse for WCW because it did a lot of things, put a lot of butts in seats, put a lot of eyes on the screen. But let's not waste any time. Before I get into it, though, I just want to say thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate it. I'm gonna try and get at least one of these a month. They're not always gonna be themed on 23 years to date or anything like that. I thought it was special. I thought it would be cool to do this. I was gonna do Bash at the Beach because I believe that anniversary is coming up, but I said nah. Let me do Nitro because it was one of my favorites. Had some good matches on the card, and man, when you talk about infectious crowd and just the reaction and the electricity in one building, it doesn't get any better than July 6th, 1998, Monday Nitro. But let's start it off. Tony Schiavone, Larry Zbyszko, and Mike Tenay are on commentary. They give the rounds. They let us know what's happening for tonight. Everybody's excited to be in the Georgia Dome. Everybody's excited for Goldberg to finally get his opportunity. They play back the footage from the prior Thursday on Thunder when J.J. Dillon was being interviewed by Mean Gene when he announced that Hogan was contractually obligated to defend the WCW Championship coming up on Nitro. Now, this was kind of strange because Bash at the Beach was actually 6 days away from this Nitro, and Hogan was already scheduled for a match alongside Dennis Rodman to take on DDP and Karl Malone. So that's kind of strange that you put him in a championship match against the biggest and hottest babyface that you probably have in the company at the moment. And if you're a wrestling fan and you know wrestling, you know what's going to happen, right? Like you understand how important this is, and you just know. Yeah. So I mean, I don't look. I don't understand the move there. I don't know how long this was in planning either. I mean, I've watched the documentaries and Goldberg and how big this was, and how big this was for WCW. I've heard the stories on um, uh, uh, Bischoff's podcast about this show in particular. So I understand, but who knows? So that was a cool way. As always, they opened up Nitro, talking to Schiavone, Zbyszko, Tenay, and or Heenan, whoever was on at the opening. They start the show off with Eric Bischoff, Hogan, the Disciple, and Miss Elizabeth coming down to the ring. Hogan starts off by addressing the NWOites, said that the red carpet was laid out when he landed in Atlanta, and he goes on to say that he's got good news and he's got bad news. He said the good news is it's the final week in the Bash at the Beach, he says that DDP and Malone will be swimming with the fishes. He says the bad news is to the 1 or 2 Goldberg fans that's in the building. And at that moment, the whole crowd just started chanting Goldberg's name, as always, just erupted. He says the match with Goldberg ain't happening. He says Goldberg ain't in the same league as him. He said he's beat a bunch of nobodies, and you can argue that might have been true. Who has Goldberg really beat? I mean, he beat up all the flock members week in, week out. Bunch of nobodies. So really, who is he beat in order? I mean, I don't know, man. You can argue that. I mean, I think he deserved it, but you can definitely argue that he pretty much went up against and beat nobody. He then says, just to show the 1 or 2 Goldberg fans he's a fair man, he's going to give them a chance to scream their heart out. And he says that he's got an NWO black and white brother that they hadn't seen in a while. So he's gonna give Goldberg his first loss tonight. So Goldberg, they'll still be able to see Goldberg compete, but it'll be against somebody in the NWO black and white. He says, and if there's a lightning bolt in the ring, or if he just so happens to get lucky and beats the NWO brother, only then will he grace him with his presence, and we'll get a match between Hogan and Goldberg. So, again, starting off with a little bit of shenanigans. Obviously, you know that they would not fill a stadium with 41,000 people if they didn't intend on having this match. So I get it. You want to build it up. It was a strange way to build it up, in my opinion, but you want to build it up and create some excitement. The first match we get was, I wouldn't have picked a better match, Dean Malenko versus Booker T for the television championship. They had themselves a good, quick matchup. A few near falls. Malenko tried a crossbody over the top rope. Kind of like Ricochet and Morrison just had on Nitro on Raw last night. But yeah, crossbody over the top rope. Took both of them out. Cruiserweight champ Chris Jericho comes out to distract Malenko as they have a match scheduled for Bash at the Beach 6 days from that night. Malenko, who's distracted, would get caught with an axe kick, and Booker T would win and retain the television championship. And Jericho would run away up the ramp like he always does. The next match, Kanyon versus Raven. By the way, that match between Booker T and Dean Malenko lasted a little over 3.5 minutes. Next match was Kanyon versus Raven with Lodi. This match was about 2 minutes, a little over 2 minutes. Kanyon wasted no time by laying out Lodi and Raven as they make their way to the ring. Kanyon, quick and aggressive offense to start the match. Tried a sleeper, which Raven reversed, and then he applied a sleeper. Kanyon does like a backdrop or a belly-to-back suplex, and him and Raven go flying over the top rope. Kanyon grabs a chair, hits a flapjack on Raven on the chair, then he covers him for a near fall. Does not get the full 3 count there. Kanyon goes to the top rope when Lodi interferes and knocks Kanyon off his feet. Raven then gets up, sets up the chair, suplexes Kanyon on the chair, and then Saturn out of nowhere runs in the ring and starts to attack Raven. Kicks Raven, he attacks Raven, kicks him in the corner, and then he picks up Kanyon, or turns around and picks up Kanyon, not realizing who Kanyon was, at least to the knowledge of Shivani and Tenay and Zbyszko, not knowing who Kanyon was. They did that a lot in WCW. It's just like, your partner, I guess they're scheduled to be partners at Bash at the Beach as well, taps him on the shoulder and then turns around and hits him with their finisher move. Oh, he must have not knew who that was. Things like that. Gives him a Death Valley driver. Nick Patrick is already called for the bell at this point. So this match ended in a no contest. Saturn sets up a table outside, wedged between the apron and the railing there. He goes up on the top rope after putting Raven on the table, and he does a splash, and he barely breaks the table. He sort of bounced off the table. But that's how that pretty much ended. They go to outside where a limo pulls up, and Buff Bagwell gets out with his mother, Judy Bagwell. Bagwell in a wheelchair. So we obviously, I don't know why Bagwell, I mean, him being a hometown guy, also, I get it, but I don't know why this was highlighted. I don't know why this was. I know that they had prior story and everything. I just don't understand it. I didn't really like it. We get a Nitro Girls dance break, which was cool. It was neat. It's always neat to get a Nitro Girls dance break. They show footage from last week, continuing to set up the Rodman Hogan versus Malone and DDP. Again, I don't know why they decided to do the match with Goldberg so close to the Bash main event, or why they couldn't do the why they couldn't do the Rodman, Hogan, Malone, DDP on Nitro, and then have Hogan and Goldberg for Bash at the Beach. I think it would have worked either way. So they show the footage from last week. Mean Gene gets in the ring to interview DDP and Karl Malone to further promote the match at the Bash at the Beach. We get a backstage promo video or vignette or whatever it was from Steve Mongo McMichael and former Bears head coach Mike Ditka, which again has had something to do with the Four Horsemen and Chris Benoit and Arn Anderson. So, they're putting that over. We get a match with Scott Putski versus Scotty Riggs. I love Scotty Riggs. If you were not an American Males fan, don't talk to me. Scotty Riggs and Marcus Bagwell. Putski wins with the Putski bomb. They put him over and says that this was one of the biggest victories of Scott Putski's career. So that's cool. The second hour starts. And, Nitro always hit the Nitro button with the pyro and the bang, boom, boom going off whenever their second hour. And I believe they did it when they went to 3 hours as well. Jericho versus Ultimo Dragon is the next match. And pre-match, Jericho is in the ring talking about how Ultimo Dragon and Dean Malenko and the only person that's the number one contender is really Rey Mysterio Jr. And J.J. Dillon comes out and he's talking to Jericho and he's like, hey, what you did last week, bringing I guess he had like a little person dressed up as Rey Mysterio and all that. And so he gets in his face and Dean Malenko runs in the ring, immediately gets in Jericho's face. J.J. Dillon says that, hey, neither one of you, it's in written paper that neither one of you are allowed to touch each other. If you do, this match is disqualified. It's not going to happen. So Jericho, being the instigator and being just Chris Jericho, he goes on to further provoke Dean Malenko and says, so you mean if I talk about, his mom, then if he hits me, then he gets disqualified? Or if I talk, and he's like, he starts talking about how they have a lot in common. Both of their daddies weren't in their lives. They were on the road. They were both athletes, and talked about how his daddy was on the road and he needed companionship and he was lonely and blah 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 blah, and said some shit that just set Dean Malenko over the top. So he snaps and he attacks Chris Jericho, and security has to break him up. They go to break and we come back and we get the match finally between Jericho and Ultimo Dragon, but then it gets interrupted by Dean Malenko, which obviously results into disqualification. Dean Malenko rips Jericho's hair out as security tries to break it up, hold Malenko back, and they eventually can't hold him back so bad to the point where they have to place him under arrest, which is unfortunate. Seeing that makes me want to fucking go watch Bash at the Beach now and review that and see how that match turned out, because I can't remember if Malenko became Cruiserweight champ that night or not. Nitro Girls are out with a little Nitro dance break again. The next match we got was Johnny Swinger versus Chavo Guerrero. Chavo Guerrero, who I believe was in a rivalry with his uncle Eddie. He comes out with a hard hat on and some scissors. Eddie Guerrero had, I believe, cut a little bit of Chavo's hair. And so, I don't know, Chavo, I guess, had PTSD from that or something. I'm not sure, man. I don't know what was going on. But this match was cool. Chavo Chavo would get the victory with a tornado DDT. Then after the match, he grabs the scissors and he says that Johnny Swinger had some split ends that he needed to cut. So he starts to cut some of the ends of Johnny Swinger's hair. And then he looks in the camera and he challenges Eddie, or further challenges Eddie. They already had a match scheduled for Bash at the Beach as well. But he challenges him and he wants to make it a hair versus hair match. So that's interesting. Next match, we get Disco Inferno and Alex Wright versus Public Enemy. Public Enemy comes out in Atlanta Braves jerseys. The crowd is going crazy for them, as they always did. So that was cool. Tokyo Magnum is also out there, in the corner of Disco Inferno and Alex Wright doing his dance. He actually gets put through a table, and this match ends up ending in a disqualification as Disco Inferno and Alex Wright attack the Public Enemies with trash cans and trash lids. So yet again, like a 5-minute match, I guess. Referee called for the bell. I don't know, man. There's a lot of shit like that going on this card. We get an entranceway interview, a vintage entranceway interview, with Mean Gene and Buff Bagwell, and they put him over, and his mom Judy Bagwell is there, and he's sad and he's selling the injury, and that's pretty much it. Bagwell selling the injury, filling out the crowd's chanting for him. He's the hometown guy, so that was whatever. We finally find out that Goldberg's opponent is indeed Scott Hall, and we didn't find out until the bell rang that it was actually for the United States Championship. Goldberg comes out after Scott Hall. Crowd explodes for Goldberg. Dumb decision to have him wrestle twice. I feel like it takes the importance away from the main event, and I think, it takes the importance away from Gold. Like, you want people to erupt in the main event. Like, you don't want Goldberg wrestling twice and having the first time they lay eyes on Goldberg isn't even in the main event and for the championship. Like, come on, man. I thought that was stupid. But this was a cool match. The match lasted about almost 6 minutes. Scott Hall, he tried several times to gain offense in this match. He got him down, though, with a backdrop suplex. Crowd got loud. Fueled Goldberg with that energy. Scott Hall calls for help. The help is cut off by DDP and Malone with chairs. And at that point, it was all over as Scott Hall tried an outsider's edge. Goldberg reverses, spear, jackhammer, 1, 2, 3. Goldberg wins, of course, and he retains the United States Heavyweight Championship. So yeah, at that moment, it's just like, okay, Goldberg wins. We know we're getting Goldberg and Hogan, but still, I would have just had Goldberg. I wouldn't have had that match go down. It was kind of pointless. Juventud and Psychosis is the next matchup. Juventud wins with a 450 splash as the Flock comes out and attack Juventud after the match, and I don't really know or understand why. The next match is Jim Duggan Hacksaw. Jim Duggan goes up against the Giant. Giant wins with a choke slam. I felt like this card on a regular, well, I wouldn't say it was a regular Nitro, but obviously for free on TV. I feel like they had a lot more matches on this card than they did at the 97 Starrcade. Which is kind of crazy, right? I mean, Starrcade, was one of their biggest pay-per-views of 97, the end of 97. So it's kind of weird. After the match, Giant, he starts talking crap about Kevin Green, says he wants him one-on-one. As Kevin Green starts to make his way to the ring and gets in his face, and it looks like he spit on him or he spit his gum at him or something. But then Giant goes to attack him. Kevin Green ducks and goes for a clothesline over the top rope. So that was a cool spot. I don't remember quite how long Kevin Green stayed in WCW, but I know it was for quite a bit. So that was cool. We get DDP versus Jim the Anvil Neidhart. That was cool. The crowd was hot for DDP, of course. He was anti-NWO, anti-Hollywood Hogan. DDP wins with a really nice-looking diamond cutter on Jim Neidhart, so that was cool. And then we get this match, tag team match, Sting and Luger, who was accompanied by Wolfpack members Konnan and Kevin Nash at ringside. They take on Sick Boy and Kidman in a complete squash match that only lasted 28 seconds. Didn't even break a sweat. The paint didn't even get a chance to drip off of Sting's face. Stinger splash, torture rack, it's over. Sting and Luger win. And so then we finally get to the main event, Goldberg and Hogan for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. This is what it's all for. This is what it comes down to. This is what everybody in the building came to see. This match was about 3 minutes longer than Goldberg's match with Scott Hall. Goldberg and Hogan lasted about 8 minutes and 11 seconds, which I guess it's not that bad, but I mean, Goldberg at that moment wasn't really known for having long matches either. I believe his match with Scott Hall was probably his longest up to that point. So it was kind of weird. The Georgia Dome is on their feet. They were on their feet before Luger and Sting were done beating up Sick Boy and Kidman. They knew what was coming up next. Goldberg makes his entrance. The pyro's going off. The crowd is chanting Goldberg. Man, what a moment. What a night. 41,000 people. That's big shit, man. Hogan makes his entrance, comes to the ring. He says he's going to kick Goldberg's butt. So they start the match. Crowd's erupting, right? At one point, Hogan hit Goldberg with the weight belt. Goldberg snatched it right from him and throws it down. Shivani's fired up. He's like, Goldberg doesn't even want the belt. He doesn't even want the weight belt. Not even just Shivani. Shivani, Heenan, they were both on point during this match, as they always are, as they were at Bash at the Beach 96 as well. I mean, man, those two worked great together. I used to love Heenan, his aggressiveness, his intensity every single time he was out there on commentary. So that was nice to hear him. Multiple headlocks, collar elbow tie-ups in this match. Hogan hit a low blow and a clothesline and goes for a choke, but lets it go before the ref counts to 4 or 5, whichever one. Hogan goes for a couple of elbow drops. In fact, he goes for 2 elbow drops, but Goldberg moves right out of the way. It's like every time he would go for an elbow drop, Goldberg would roll out of the way and then roll back in place. Roll out of the way, roll back in place, right? Hogan rolls out of the ring to grab his weight belt and puts it back on. Hogan gets Goldberg on the outside and he hits him with a chair. And I'm like, oh shit. And at this point, I didn't even know, is this a disqualification? Is this no DQ? Is this, like, what is this? I don't know. Hogan gets, like I said, he hits him with a chair, gets him back in the ring, scoop slams him, and then hits a couple of leg drops. And at this point, I'm like, whoa. But he hits 2. I believe he hit 2. And then the third one was off camera as they cut to the entryway where Kurt Hennig, what the fuck? Kurt Hennig started to make his way down the ring. As you hear the ref counting 1, 2, Goldberg actually kicking out of those leg drops. Malone and DDP cut Hennig off just at the apron. And Malone turns Hennig around and hits him with a diamond cutter. And the place came unglued. I mean, man, honestly, it just got me hyped. I was a big WCW fan. And so watching this back, and don't get me wrong, I've watched it several times since this happened. It's one of my go-tos whenever I want to see and hear a crowd and, you know, just see some good WCW action. Um, but yeah, watching it back and really just sitting back and kind of relaxing and just watching it again like I did, it really made me feel like, man, sometimes you just got to do it for the fans. You have to. You have to do it for the fans. Um, you got to be able to scan that audience and know what they want, know what they need, know what they crave, you know? But like I said, the place came unglued. And this is, again, it's the second time this has happened. It seemed like DDP and Malone were on a mission to make sure that the NWO and Hollywood Hogan did not leave the Georgia Dome with the WCW Championship. They did not leave with any Ws, and that they had all the leverage going into the match at Bash at the Beach. But hey, DDP was over, man. I felt like I said earlier, they could have had this match, DDP, Malone, Rodman, and Hogan. They could have had this match on Nitro and moved Goldberg and Hogan to the pay-per-view. There was no Dennis Rodman to be found. I don't know what's up with that. I don't know why they didn't have Rodman out there. But, you know, it is what it is. With Hogan looking on the outside, trying to watch what's happening, Goldberg is in the corner. Everybody's on their feet. They know it's coming. The place is rumbling. Like, you can damn near see the hard camera shaking. He's setting up for the spear. Hogan turns around in one of the most goofiest fashions ever. Like, his expression and the way he turned around was like, okay, he's down. Okay, let me get back to my match. And he turns around and then bam, Goldberg hits him with a spear. Bobby Heenan and Tony Schiavone are going crazy on commentary. Heenan screaming, finish him off! Finish him off! Goldberg sets him up, gets him in the air for that jackhammer, hits it. 1, 2, 3. And for the very first time, a man who is undefeated wins the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Goldberg did that. I believe at that point he was, after beating Hogan, he was 108-0. 108 wins, 0 losses. Beats Hollywood Hogan, captures the WCW title. The entire place is going crazy, chanting Goldberg, while he holds up the U.S. And World Heavyweight titles. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and put a clip just so you guys can hear the sounds of that night. Even though you might have seen it, you might not have seen it. But just to give you that feeling again, because even hearing it, you can feel it. You can feel the energy. So I'm going to real quick insert a clip so you guys can hear that moment real quick.
And look at Goldberg. He's ready. He's poised. Okay, there's part 1. Now finish him off. Finish him off. He's calling for it. This is it. This is it. Your career's on the line here. Do it. Do it. This place will erupt when he picks him up. He's got him up. Oh, hell yeah. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. We've got a new heavyweight champion of the world. The first undefeated man in the history of this sport to ever win the world championship and have a record of 107, 108. Who cares? There's 0 on the other side. We've got a new champion. Listen to this.
It doesn't get any better than that. Like I said, the electricity, the intensity, Heenan on the call, Schiavone on the call. One of the most hostile, craziest, loudest, lopsided environments as Goldberg becomes champion. And a good visual, a good moment for Goldberg. I don't know if you guys have seen any of the Goldberg documentaries or heard him talk about this moment in particular. about it being one of the biggest moments of his career, if not the biggest. Well, probably different now up to this point. I mean, I'm sure his son seeing him wrestle is probably one of the biggest moments of his career now. But I believe Goldberg's football team was in attendance there that night, and they got to share the stage with him after Nitro went off the air, so that was cool. 23 years, man. 23 years today since Goldberg became WCW champion for the first time, becoming the first undefeated person to win a championship. I thought it was a good match for what it was. Like I said, Goldberg wasn't really your typical 15, 20-minute match man. That would actually come against DDP, I believe. But we'll probably review that match, or that card rather, from Halloween Havoc one day, maybe for Halloween. But like I said, man, lopsided environment. Everybody was going crazy for Goldberg. Hogan put him over. I think one of the greatest spears and jackhammers ever. Again, you can't get any better than Heenan going nuts. And just calling it. This place is gonna erupt when he picks him up. Just watch. Shit like that to me is pretty fucking cool. It gives me goosebumps, gives me chills. It honestly, I'm that type of wrestling fan. It brings tears to my eyes whenever I'm in a moment or watch a moment, because even when I'm watching, I feel like I'm in it. That's the true wrestling fan in me. That's what wrestling's all about. That's what it always used to be about. That's what it should be about. But yeah, man, that was it. They cut the broadcast off at Goldberg on the stage with the pyro going off, him holding up the U.S. Championship and the WCW title. So that was cool. I had fun watching it. If you haven't watched it in a while, go on the WWE Network and fucking watch it. I mean, WCW knew how to put on some shit, man. They had some goofy shit in the later years, especially in later in 98. But this was a moment. It was a good moment. I think, one of the reasons why people probably fell in love with Goldberg. He kicked Hogan's ass, so I know everybody out there, it's always fuck Hulk Hogan, right? But if you want to see Hogan get his ass kicked, and you want to feel that electricity, and you want to feel like like you felt in the 90s, then go back and watch WCW Nitro, July 6th, 1998, from the Georgia Dome. That's pretty much it for the very first edition of Within the Ropes Throwback Review. I'm going to keep doing more of these. I appreciate each and every one of you who listen, who tune in. Thanks. I'm doing this. I'm having a lot of fucking fun doing it. Make sure you guys follow me, if you don't already, on my socials at Within the Ropes, on Twitter and Instagram at Within the Ropes. Yeah, and that's it. Hey, we got NXT Great American Bash tonight, so I'll be back with a Great American Bash review tonight, and then we'll go forward. Tomorrow they got AEW Dynamite in Miami, Road Rager in Miami, so that should be cool. So yeah, everybody have a good evening, afternoon, night, wherever you're at, or whatever time you're listening to this. I appreciate you for listening to it, and I'll catch you guys later on. I'm going to end this with Sounds of Monday Nitro. You guys have a good one.